Welcome to the Nerds from Work, your weekly escape into the world of geeks, nerds, and where do we keep finding extra people? Like, there are so many boxes all the time in this thing. So many people. Apparently, we kidnapped another author. So, yeah. As always, I'm Jason Miller. I got Josh Tankersley.
What's going on, everybody?
Naruk Vajay.
What up?
Brandon Miller.
Hello, hello, hello.
And then a new author that we have kidnapped, taken style, Nicholas Eames.
Greetings. Nice to be here.
Yeah.
You want me to introduce myself now?
Yeah, but first, everybody hold up what you're drinking. I want everyone to know what kind of man this is. Everyone, so I've got a beer. Tank has a beer. Naru's got milk. Brandon has a beer. But Nick Eames is drinking whiskey out of the bottle. I just want everyone to know what kind of man you are.
Like a fucking boss.
Well, to be fair, I do have a Diet Coke off screen.
Whoa, put that down.
So
That's okay. I'll edit
that's
it.
what kind of man I am. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. I'm Nick Eames. I work at a restaurant, but I also wrote a book called Kings of the Wyld, which got published by Orbit, and my second book's just about to come out next month, and it's called Bloody Rose.
Wow, I love how you just made that sound like the least. No. Okay, Nick Eames might work at a restaurant, but that's his booby
True.
job.
Secret
Not for
identity.
long, I hope.
That's his
Not
booby
for long.
job. So I am a fan of Nick Eames. You guys heard me talk about Into the Wild, almost a year ago.
Yeah.
I told everyone, check this book out. This shit is awesome. I have finished the book. It's amazing. Tank has picked up the book. Brandon has done research on the book. I think he picked it up. Naru, definitely looking into it. And everybody's grabbing the second book. So tell us about Kings of the Wyld, because I want the listeners to know. I want everyone to know.
Cool. Well, Kings of the Wyld takes place in a setting that is kind of a homage to the 70s like rock era. So mercenary bands of 4 or 5 men or women have managers that book them gigs, but those gigs are to slay this dragon or save this prince or rescue this town. And between gigs, they drink and smoke and fuck everything that moves and generally act like hooligans and are treated like celebrity rock stars. But they're all kind of past their prime. They were once the greatest mercenary band in the world, and they've all kind of gone their separate ways. And then one of them has a daughter who's grown up, and she's become a mercenary herself, and she's trapped in a city halfway across the world, and there's a giant forest full of evil shit between them, and so he has to get the old band back together to go rescue her.
I will say that Clay Cooper at the beginning was my favorite. Like, just the strong, like, silent, I'm gonna hit you with this shield. I think so when I think of them now, because I read it a year ago, when I think of them now, I think of like their position in a band. Like, not even like, oh yeah, he had 2 daggers. He is the drummer. Like,
exactly.
Is that right?
100%. They were made, at least in that book, to exactly mimic the people in a band. So Gabriel is the lead singer. He's kind of like, always sleeping with whoever he can possibly sleep with. He's kind of a braggart. And then his best friend Clay is sort of the bassist, who everyone always forgets his name, and he's quiet. But it wasn't for him. He's kind of the heartbeat of the band. Yeah, the band would kind of fall apart without his kind of like constant quiet rhythm. And then there is Matrick, as you mentioned, the drummer, who is often shirtless and fights with 2 knives.
Hell yeah.
Dude.
And then who else? Ganelon, the Axeman, who is their most dangerous guy. Like by far, he's kind of the strong, silent type. And doesn't say much and just kicks people's ass. And then last is Moog, who is their old wizard. Always old in the book, at least. Who basically represents like that zany guy you see playing the keyboards or the triangle or the kazoo or whatever the fuck someone needs to play, setting off fireworks in the back.
So perfect.
I was trying to figure out who Moog was in the band. Like all the others, easy. Like I got it.
Yeah, he's the outlier. He's the outlier. And so in the book, he plays a wizard who he had a husband who died, who contracted this disease that you get when you go in this forest. So ever since, he's been trying to cure this disease. But to make ends meet in the meantime, he makes an erectile dysfunction potion.
That's so good.
Some people try to get taken out of the book, but I managed to sneak it in there. So, yeah.
I'm glad it stuck, because when I got to that part in the book, I couldn't stop laughing.
Dude,
Like,
Good, because it was when I first got my agent. One of the first things she said, she's like, "I like it, blah blah blah." She's like, "I think the boner scene has to go because there's a fight where everyone essentially
when they
has
come through
boners."
that mirror, it's so funny.
Yeah, the wizard has
good.
exploded this erectile dysfunction potion, and it's super awkward, and she hated it. But
I hope at some point.
but all
in
my
life
friends
I
who'd
get
read the book
someone to
insisted
say-
it stay in there, so I stuck up for it and it stayed in there.
I hope at some point in my life I get someone to say the boner scene has to go.
Exactly.
I want that to come up in my life.
Brandon, we have a show full of dudes. So that's
More
weird.
importantly,
If it has
when
to
you
go,
say
it has
the
to
boner scene stays, god damn it.
Yeah, when you're fighting for the boner scene to stay,
Yeah.
I think.
If the boner goes, I go too.
I think that's a new level once you hit that level.
It's so good.
Yep.
But yeah, the book is great. So we do have a few questions. We're gonna run you through a gauntlet,
Not book related.
not book related whatsoever. We're gonna take a step back.
Yep. We'll come back
We
to the
gotta
book in
let
a second.
people know what kind of nerd you really are. So the first question: who is your favorite superhero and why?
Spider-Man, I would say. Mostly
one.
because I used to draw the shit out of him as a kid. I wanted to be an animator the entire time I was a kid, and I drew him all the time. And then just in general, nowadays, if I had to say why, just because he's got a sense of humor more than a lot of other superheroes do. So I like that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Which Spider-Man? Who's your movie Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I prefer Todd McFarlane's drawing of Spider-Man, actually.
Just not even gonna go there.
Anybody but goth Tobey Maguire.
Okay, we'll take that.
Anybody.
We'll take that.
Yep, acceptable.
No,
Had
you know
you
what Spider-Man
said
I'm looking for?
Tobey
There's an animated one coming out that looks
Yes.
amazing.
Into
Looks
the
so
Spider-Verse.
Yes. That looks like he's going to be my Spider-Man.
Looks dope.
That one looks good. Second question.
What is
There you
your
go.
favorite? What is it? Comic book movie? Comic book based.
I would say maybe Thor Ragnarok.
Oh,
That counts,
That's a
right?
great one.
Dude, that's coming back around a lot. That's been an answer for the last couple guests.
and why?
Yeah. Why? Probably because it helped kick down the door for a Kings of the Wild movie. Mostly because it's a little bit fantasy, and it uses like Led Zeppelin in the trailer, right in the actual movie. It's kind of goofy, and so that's the movie that most like opens the door. If you're going to say like, well, Thor Ragnarok did well, so you take humor and rock and roll, and yeah.
I would pay to go see Kings of the Wild in theater.
Dude,
I mean, it's
okay,
got
for
Game of
sure.
Thrones, Thor Ragnarok. Like, it's got the feel. Like,
Yeah, I think like casting a bunch of over the hill guys to play them, except for Ganelon, obviously. Their main guy, not the main guy, the Axeman, the most dangerous guy, who for those who haven't read it, basically committed a crime way back, or like got revenge on somebody and got turned to stone. So they all got old, and he's been turned to stone ever since. So when
And
they
he's
get
still
him,
a killer.
he's not.
So basically,
Yeah.
he's Living Stone.
Yeah, but they unthaw him, like they turn him back to flesh.
I thought it was gonna be like,
But he's still like 28 years old, and they're all 40.
but in his mind was still going in the stone. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
what y'all got against 40 though? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I'm there myself. But we pee a lot more than we did when we were 28, I'll tell you that.
I don't know. I pee a lot. I pee so much. It's wild. All right.
In that case, your future is gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of probably a bag.
Yeah. Diapers.
All right. The question I have is, which so since your series is kind of based around music, what is the number one artist you listen to in the car by yourself that you wouldn't want people to know you listen to, and why?
I'm actually I'm not ashamed of whoever I listen to, and I listen to fucking everybody.
Like T Swizzle.
Say that.
So yeah, who is the most surprising?
Like
one
I'm
that you think
T Swizzle
will-
100%. Like literally, I went for a run just like a half an hour ago, and I listened to the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin, and then Taylor Swift.
Shake
right
It Off.
afterwards.
Nice.
Shake it
Yeah.
off.
That's that one where
Shake
she
it
goes,
I
off.
like literally everything from like
Shit.
I love modern stuff like Bieber, a couple songs, not everything obviously.
You're not a
But,
third believer?
Not a full believer, but I mean that. What do you mean? It's hard not to like that song.
True.
Yeah, The Weeknd.
I can get down with the beef
Love
a little
'em.
bit. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You just got to pick your songs.
All right. Not,
But also
not ashamed.
the playlist I listen to varies on what book, because the first book is all like 70s music, the second one's all 80s music, and the third one's all 90s. So
Sweet.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Did you just say
Third?
there's going to be a third one too?
Breaking news.
yeah, I'm contracted for 3, and I'm like just a few chapters into it right now. So
Like so
What's it called?
behind the scenes look, right? I want everyone to know this. I was actually looking for the second Into the Wild book, right? And I'm like, all right, what is it? I came across your website, saw your email, and I was like, I'll shoot him an email. He's like, hey, I'm free this Wednesday. All right, sweet, let's do this. I didn't even know there was a second book. I was just like, I need to find a second book of this because I'm tired of waiting. And now you're breaking news that there's a third one? You're killing me.
yeah, well, everything's a trilogy these days, man. I wrote it as like a single book, and it doesn't, like, it has a conclusion and ending. And when they wanted a trilogy, I'm like, 100% I'll do that, but it can't be with the same characters, because the whole point of these people is that it's their one last hurrah. So although there's definitely some cameos in there, it takes place about 6 years later, the second one.
Okay.
It's that Kings of the Wild is their story, and it's,
Sweet.
self-contained.
I don't know if you're able to tell us this or not, but is the third one going to be a new band, or is it going to be a continuation of the second band? Or
Yeah, no, it's a new band too, because the second one takes place about 6 years after, and then the third one takes place about like almost 14 years after that.
Oh, okay.
So the Kings of the Wild guys will be pretty damn old, but it's kind of a whole new generation, and it kind of splits. There's two main characters in that one as opposed to the 80s one, so half the influences and the references in the book will be like grunge related, and then half of them will be like hip hop related.
So they're all going to have long hair, holes in their blue jeans, and wear plaid.
Some of them, yeah.
I'm into that. I'm into that.
Down.
I'm down. with
Nazi
that.
Star. 100%
Yeah.
Nazi Star.
I got a
It's
question.
got a very anti-establishment theme to it.
I got a question.
Okay.
Since you kind of opened the door to this by referencing the fact that Thor Ragnarok would probably be a great lead into a Kings of the Wild movie, I'm guessing you already fan casted your dream cast.
Yeah, some of them for sure.
Sure, I'll play Cooper. I'll be your friend. That's fine. I'm good.
Not old.
You know who we thought would be a pretty good Clay Cooper is David Harbour. You know, the guy who plays the cop on Stranger Things.
He's gonna be
Yes.
the new Hellboy.
Hellboy, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
Just
I
because
could
he's
see
got that kind of like, he looks like a good guy, a solid guy, sturdy guy, big guy.
but also
he
very
can look-
masculine guy.
Yeah.
Solid, sturdy,
Yeah, and he's got like a
lived a life guy.
careful violence about him.
Yeah. I could see that.
And then
That's-
Gabriel is like the leader of the band, and he has to be able to, somebody who was obviously good looking in their youth, but can kind of clean up well, but look disheveled. So I thought the guy who plays Jamie Lannister, Nikolai Coster-Waldau,
Yeah.
what about
'Cause, like,
Dennis
when he's-
Leary?
when he looks fucked up, Dennis Leary's almost too old now, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Who?
Dennis Leary?
You know, because Gabriel still needs to have he still needs to pull off some crazy shit.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I think when that guy who plays Jamie Lannister, when he's fucked up, he looks really fucked up, like and haggard.
Mhm.
But when he's all polished and shined up, he looks pretty good too. So,
a
then the
great
rest,
one.
I know there's not necessarily like living actors, but there's a lot of. Oh yeah, never mind. Ron Perlman as Calorek. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
Calorek.
Yeah.
Calorek
yeah.
is their manager, their booker, their old manager. He's now
Ron-
like kind of a rich asshole. But yeah,
Like,
Ron
when I
Perlman,
read
100%.
When I read it, I envisioned the manager being like a lot more overweight. Like gold chains, and like kind of like just a greasy Danny DeVito looking guy.
Yeah, he was modeled after Led Zeppelin's manager, Peter Grant, who looks exactly like I described him. Like I called him the Orc because Peter Grant looked like an orc.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you're thinking overweight, badass looking dudes, how about John Goodman?
Who?
John Goodman?
Oh, yeah, I don't know if he would fit any people. They do need to perform some pretty crazy feats of, athleticism, even the overweight ones.
Yeah.
But, there's on my website, there are drawings. The guy did portraits of all the characters, and sometimes with certain characters, it was like, okay, kind of use these people. So Matrick, he looks, I gave him like Jack Nicholson, John Bonham, who is the drummer of Led Zeppelin. Last Leaf, just basically David Bowie, like right down the pickle barrel on that one. Yeah, God, if only Idris Elba was a bit younger, he could play Ganelon. I'm actually looking at I have them on my wall here, but
you have Idris Elba?
He's a bit younger.
Wait, why do you have?
I have a picture of Ganelon on my wall. A picture of Ganelon on my wall.
Oh, dude, that's actually
every other
sweet.
week I fan out about how much I love Idris Elba.
Dude.
Yeah, but he's got to be the guy that was frozen when he was younger, so he can't be old. He can't be older, unfortunately. Yeah. And Ganelon, I just want to freeze him over and over again, and someday write a Ganelon in space story, where like some future civilization unleashes him on a fucking spaceship, and he's just got his axe and his leathers, and just absolutely cuts through aliens.
I think when they were in the first arena after Ganelon was let out, and he was still like real pissed at the band. Mm-hmm. I think that was one of my favorite scenes from the book, where he basically just like soloed that bitch. Like,
100%.
He just soloed that thing, and he just ripped that shit apart, and it was awesome. I think it's because I was explaining. So I'm actually in Orlando. I don't normally film at a screened-in porch. So I'm on vacation, but on the way down, I was explaining to my father-in-law. He was like, "Oh, so who do you guys have on the show tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, I've got Nick Eames. He wrote this book." He was like, "Well, what's the book about?" And I explained it to him, and he was like, "How did he do that?" So can you explain maybe to the people listening what made you want to mix these two worlds that will, honestly, no one's ever thought of that before, and it works so well.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing is that it's done the other way a lot. There's so much music that's got fantasy stuff in it. Whether it's like old Led Zeppelin songs or Rush or like this band called Hawkwind that I didn't even hear about till I was on editing Kings of the Wild. And but basically, I'd read the book Ready Player One.
Oh, nice.
And for those who've read it, in the second his second trial is he has to listen to a Rush song and he has to play it on his guitar. So I listened to that song in real life and I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking good. Like I'd never listened to Rush before. So I started just listening to more of it, and somehow I just struck the idea, like mercenary bands as rock bands. I thought for sure someone had done it before, so I Googled it and no one had. And I was like, I got to shut my mouth about this and just write it quickly. I thought it was an insanely good idea, like just crazy. I hoped the whole time I was writing it that I could do it justice. And then when I did finally write it and try to find agents for it, a lot of my first agent that I had like on the hook, and then the first publisher that I had on the hook, both wanted all the music references taken out. Yeah, they wanted it to be more like kind of like a Joe Abercrombie book, which it's kind of close to that, but with the music stuff. And I think, because it's sort of gimmicky. It's kind of one of those ideas where you're fucking stoned out of your mind and you say to your friend, what if you wrote a book where mercenary bands were rock bands? And then you laugh about it and you never talk about it again. But
Abraham Lincoln about Vampire Slayer type setup.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just like you're saying, oh yeah, it's happened in the reverse all the time. But, once people pick these books up and read it, like Tank, on my recommendation, picked it up. I mean, Tank, you just started. What do you think? Like, does this work?
Dude, I love it. So I started reading it yesterday, and I'm like 16 chapters in.
Nice.
They literally just faked the king's death. It starts with an M. I'm still trying to get the characters.
Matrick. Yeah, no worries.
They just faked his death. So and they got robbed for the second time. Because by the way, the Silk Girls are. I'm hoping they keep popping up because it's hilarious. But
you'll be happy then.
Awesome. So it's fantastic. It's fantasy, but it's like with a rock edge to it. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's not.
Well, a lot of people do. Like, it is pretty gimmicky. And it could be, if not handled right, it could be really gimmicky. But I think when people read the second book, it kind of goes, you see the world a bit more, because in this one it's just go, 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 go. But in the second book, you literally see a band on tour, going from arena to arena, from town to town, getting drunk in taverns afterwards, fighting, dealing with the wranglers that drudge up the monsters, fighting them, so they're on the road with groupies with them and shit like that. Like, see kind of the world. It'll make more sense and be less gimmicky, I think.
So the first one, I loved it because there was the mission, right? Like, okay, everyone knows. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, combat MOS, and then I got out. So then you get out and you're just kind of like, well, what the fuck do I do with my life now?
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, whatever. So I related a lot to the Kings of the Wyld. I'm not, past my prime yet, I don't think, but these guys had such, meaning and such drive, and then they try to live normal lives. Where Matrick becomes a king, that's my favorite one, where he just gets fat and all the kids are like, he's got 100 different kids. And
are you spoiling the book right now? I just want to be...
No, this is still the first couple chapters. It's not too much.
Cool.
But
getting the band back together part isn't so crazy, but spoiler, that's kind of fun.
All right.
No, the book is amazing.
And I want to tag on after you, Jason. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
So the thing that I really enjoy is it has when I'm reading it, so I read a lot of like fantasy books, adventure books, and the writing is very fantasy adventure, but then you just have these lines where it's just like, and then at that moment, Cooper felt like an asshole. And like the way it's just worded, it's like that, it feels like a person who used to be in the military, who got out, is trying to like get his mind into this like civilian mindset where I can't cuss every other word. But then like when he's in his own head, he's like, no, that was definitely, I feel like an asshole. And it's just, I don't know, it's just worded so perfect, because I was in the Army for 6 years, and hearing that, like, the way he thinks, I was like, no, I get that, that makes sense. It was really, really cool.
I've had a lot of people that served in the armed forces mention that, just like kind of like, because it's so much about like brotherhood and camaraderie, and just mention that they kind of related to it.
Yeah, I mean,
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's probably the one thing, or a thing, that like rock and roll and two things as different as rock and roll and the armed forces or whatever military people serve in, like, actually have in common, right? It's like the very close bonds of you go everywhere with these people. Yeah, you are very close knit, and you also have the worst cursing habit.
Oh yeah,
probably also alcohol.
Exactly.
So
and plus the situations you're in are so extreme that when you come back, you can't really relate at the same. People are like, you don't know what I've seen, or exactly.
So I used to work for a racing company, and one of my clients was Brian Johnson, the lead singer from AC/DC.
Oh yeah. Dope.
And when that guy would call me, he would just be like, "Oh, what's up, motherfucker?" And that's how he initiates a phone call. And I'm like, British guy calling me a motherfucker. That's Brian Johnson. Okay, because he would always block his number. He's like,
that's pretty
I like
awesome,
you, Jason, but I can't give you my number. And I'm like, dude, I am literally creating this stuff for you. He's like, I'll call you. I'm like, okay. He's like, you'll know it's me. Okay. So
I'll call you a motherfucker.
Yeah, that's he would just call me and be like, hey, motherfucker, I'm going to be in North Carolina. Can you be here? I'm like, I guess. He's like, all right, come on up. I was like, okay.
Cool.
But so the first book was very much about the mission, right, to save his daughter. So I'm guessing in the second book, from what you've said, is going to be more about the life.
100%, yeah. Because the second book is about the main character is a girl named Tam, who's 17 years old, and she. Her father was a mercenary and her mother was a bard. And in the setting, bards kind of follow bands around and kind of pump their tires up. And when they stop at a tavern that night, the bard, if they fucking kicked a lizard, they're like, they slayed a dragon. They kind of tell stories about them and then make them famous. So there's a running joke in the first book that which is taken directly from the movie Spinal Tap. In the movie Spinal Tap, their drummers die all the time of mysterious circumstances. So Saga, the band in the first book, they cannot keep a bard alive for the life of them. They just fucking die all the time.
But the bard
so they're always
I love.
Yeah, they do eventually get a bard in there. But so in the second one is about a bard.
Cool.
And this band comes to town, who's the most famous band in the world at that time, and basically she signs on as their bard. And so for the first part of it, they're on tour, and there's like this basically world-wrecking evil that every band in the world's on their way to fight, but not this band. They're like just finishing their tour, and they've got a contract they're going to go see, and she kind of doesn't know why, because if anyone should be, fighting off this crazy evil, it's them. So it's kind of about her like learning that. The dark side and the seedier side of like her idols and heroes and, being on the road and things like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I am, I've already pre-ordered the book. I've already pre-ordered the second one.
I appreciate it.
I'm stoked for it. So yeah, I think that ends my questions. Naru, do you have any questions?
There's two things that came to mind. The first of them was I was reading, I think it was you retweeted somebody online, and it was a thread where she was talking about the relationship between a reader and a book. And I love that thread.
Yeah.
It was really cool because she talked about the fact that most people don't realize that, yes, the author does what they can with the book, but at the same time, the reader has to own their share of the experience. And she talked about how, there was a book that she was reading on vacation and couldn't get into it. And then she later on left the book, found another one of those smaller books, finished it, enjoyed that book. And if you had asked her then to rate the book, she would have said, okay, book B is better than book A. So it got me thinking about how I have had issues with some books myself and wondered about, I guess I'll just phrase it as a straight question. What is your ideal time you'd recommend for people to read your books? Like, what's the perfect, in your mind, you think is the best situation you want to be in to really enjoy get into one of my books?
That's a great question, because there's definitely, luckily it's a small percentage for me, but I thought it would be a much larger one that fucking hate it. They fucking hate it. But the thing is, all their critiques of it are dead on. Like, there's just a time in your life when you maybe aren't ready for it. Like, and that goes, whether you're on vacation or not. But I find a lot of time in your age, like my favorite author in the world, I tried to read him when I was a teenager and I couldn't get into him. And then I read him as an adult and it just fucking tears me apart. But my book, I think it's good to come at it as, and I wanted to write it as for someone who'd never read fantasy before could get into it. So that's where things like the relatability of the characters, the language, the basic, like it uses every single like basic Dungeons and Dragons monster in the world, like orcs, goblins, kobolds, like if it's in the monster manual, I use them.
So many monsters. I love it.
Yeah, and the reason I did that and not made up my own monsters is because if you get a non-fantasy reader and they read, say your monster's called a Gorkar, and then you've got to describe what a Gorkar is, and they're trying to read, they're like, no, I'm just not into it. Where if they read the word goblin, they're like, okay, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it, and they just keep reading. So I think someone who's brand new to fantasy, it works pretty well. And then I think someone who's been around and read really widely and like tons of fantasy and knows all the tropes and sees them all before, then they're going to see what I'm kind of going for and be like, yeah, this guy's, he's also read a lot and he knows every trope and he's kind of throwing them in our face and making fun of them and having fun with them and celebrating all the nerdy shit that made me love fantasy maybe when I was a kid. Because for a while, when I was, say, 25 to 35, if you told me there was a goblin in a book, I wouldn't have read it. I'd be like, no, I'm way too fucking cool to read a book about goblins. Because books for a while there, from like 2005 to 2015, were just grimdark. They were, realistic. They were all about, thanks to Game of Thrones, but they were all like politics, subterfuge, like, war, culture, religion. It kind of, things got away from like classic fantasy. So, yeah. So I think someone who's still in that phase, who really, and I've been there, someone who just is like wants really thick something to chew on, then they might kind of be pissed off at it. But someone who's looking just to have a good time, that's Kings of the Wyld.
And I know you mentioned, I think it was on your website, you talked about how some people have come at it and they found like, it brings a sense of hope and optimism to some people. You referenced a dad whose daughter was going through a tough time and the impact that the book had on him. So I'm just wondering, what's the coolest story you've heard from anybody who read the book and their feedback to you, I guess?
There's been a few of them. I mean, like that one was pretty big. That was the one from a father who had a kid in the ICU who was, undergoing a pretty insane surgery, and just happened to find my book as he went in. He had a daughter. It was his little girl, and because the book is about a father going after his little girl, it really and not giving up hope no matter what.
Right.
Even when things seem hopeless. That one was pretty touching.
I can tell you, as a father of a daughter, I'm not sure what this book's going to do to me, because ever since I had my daughter, every movie and book that has to do with father-daughter dynamics, I cry like a baby.
I'll tell you
then
now,
I'm sure
Naru.
what the book's going to do with you. It's going to break you like a switch.
Naru, it'll do two things, because I've got two daughters.
Oh, God.
It will make you want to spend more time with them, but also watch them. You're not going to do what I used to do.
So I will say, I have two sons, and the scene where Clay's sitting on the bed with his little girl, and she's like, "Well, you should go save her." I was like, "Oh, why? Don't do that to me."
That is where they all grow up.
Yeah,
that I thought was good.
Isn't that from Ant-Man and the Wasp? Just curious.
Oh, kind of.
Kind of. Tank, do you have any questions?
The only question I have, so we mentioned to you kind of before we were recording that we're all working on D&D characters, and I seem to do pretty good with class and race and a little bit of backstory I do okay with. How do you come up with names? Because that is the hardest thing for me to freaking try and come up with is a name that doesn't sound dumb.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, the names, I at least in this book was trying to go with names that were pretty basic because, once again, when you're trying to suggest a book to a non-fantasy reader, if you've got someone named Gwildor, they just shut right off. They don't want to hear it. So names like Clay Cooper, that's pretty basic. You might have a cousin named that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Plum History. History is so full of cool names. I think that's where I got Ganelon was, he was he has something to do with, there's a song called the Song of Roland or something like that. It was I don't know. Just Plum History, old poems, things like Beowulf, stuff like that. Just look for crazy names like that in there.
Cool. That's good to know. Thank you.
Naru's a pretty good name for that kind of thing.
No, Naru is not a good
Exactly.
name. Jason is a very basic name. I have a special line at the airport because my name is so basic.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be the line to the bathroom.
Well, no, if you have a basic name, they put you in a different line because you could be faking your passport. So
exactly.
Well,
also, a lot of the names in the book were based on or musical references. Like Moog is a brand of keyboard.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Things like the town that he's from is Coverdale, which is the lead singer of Deep Purple. So a lot of places are. Every single northern city is named after a Scotch, just with a couple letters changed.
Nice.
That's so dope.
So there's Ardberg instead of Ardbeg, and Taliskard instead of Talisker.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Name yourself after alcohol, please.
Got it.
Exactly.
I will
There you go.
change my character.
Talisker is a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
It's a dope name.
Yeah, Talisker, Crag, and more.
I'm going to be Oceans because that's what I have in there.
Yeah, whatever you're drinking.
Jefferson Oceans. Brandon, I know you have a question. You
I
always
have
ask
one-
questions.
Yeah, I have one question that might be long-winded. But
Okay.
so in describing your first book, you mentioned Led Zeppelin multiple times. In your second book, and I know you probably can't tell us about your third book, but in your second book, which band and or musical artists are you using to try to build this new cast that you're showcasing to everybody?
With the second one, as opposed to the first one where each person was a member of the band, in the second one, each person is almost like a genre of music. So there's a kind of a big burly guy named Brune who's like their shaman. He's like a shaman shape changer. He's kind of the rock guy, the heavy metal guy. There's a girl called Cura who's kind of like covered in tattoos. They call her the Ink Witch, and she's kind of like literally named after the band The Cure. So like kind of that goth
Nice.
thing. Rose is a kind of a mix between like punk and rock and roll. And Free Cloud, who's like her boyfriend, I guess we'd say it. He's a druid, so he's like a badass swordsman with bunny ears.
That's tight.
Yeah, who uses a katana. He's just pretty much the awesomest fucking thing you can think of.
That's so good.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's kind
Cooper
of
is
just more like the
badass.
pop. Like a lot of the '80s stuff was really like hard on sleeve. Like where the '70s music was kind of meandering and ethereal, the '80s stuff was like, look at me, like God, I'm so fucking in love with you. Like songs nowadays are all about, they're kind of standoffish. They're like, I'm strong without you, I don't need you, blah blah blah. But in the '80s, people were like, I am dying without you.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of like the
arms tonight.
exactly. Like who's gonna drive you home? Like all these songs, like everything. So yeah, so it kind of takes a little bit of everything in there, and then
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then the third one, like I mentioned, the third one is there's a character in there that's. I mean, I have one playlist for it, but exactly half the songs on it are everything from like NWA to like Biggie and Tupac and things like that, and then the other half of it is Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Tragically Hip because I'm Canadian.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to meld those two, and they each represent a character, so trying to put them together.
Wait.
So for each book, did you create a specific playlist to help you stay in the mindset of these characters or how this book should play out?
Not create it. I didn't create it until afterwards, but I definitely like listen to just that kind of music all the time. Usually a good way to do it is put an album on, because then the albums are usually, the songs kind of meld into each other and they have the similar sound. You can kind of zone out. Whereas if it's a playlist, sometimes it can jar you. A new song comes on, you're like, fucking Walking on Sunshine. Yeah. Whereas in the first book, it was more ethereal, because the first book, I didn't know much about 70s music at all before I started writing it. And so I listened to it and I was stunned by it. Like when I'm hearing these Pink Floyd, like 16-minute sagas, I just couldn't believe it. And so a lot of the scenes came directly from that music. And I would walk to work every single day and listen to Freebird and know that that's what I was going to write the final battle to, is the song the guitar solo in Freebird.
So you said in the 90s one, NWA is a reference to a character. Can we make him a lot like Eazy-E?
Yeah, because Eazy's the best. Easy does it, dude.
Actually, or Ice Cube, because I'd be down with Ice Cube, because he's a crazy motherfucker.
As long as they...
Yeah, I'm still working on his personality, because I'm only about 4 chapters in, but we'll see.
Yo, but he's a crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube from the gang called Something with Attitude.
Well, there's a lot of it. A lot of... who am I trying to think of right now? Wu-Tang Clan.
Ooh,
dude.
Wu-Tang Clan.
Ain't nothing to fuck with. I just got a Wu-Tang Clan album on cassette, actually, like a week ago.
Yeah. Rage Against the Machine is another great one, and I remember in high school just despising Rage Against the Machine. I hated them for some reason. But boy, they sum up a lot of what this book is about, like the rage.
No,
So I know it's sad to say, I've already pre-ordered the second book, but now I'm extremely excited for the third book because I love NWA, I love Rage, and I mean this is fleshing out to be.
We're 90s babies.
Yeah.
I am a 90s.
Yeah,
baby.
you'll probably get a lot more of the references because there's hundreds and hundreds of them in Kings of the Wild, and there's hundreds in Bloody Rose too. But they're more 80s. There's a lot of movie references in Bloody Rose. There's like everything from Dumb and Dumber to Ghostbusters to Princess Bride. They're like I'm talking almost direct quotes.
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
So yeah.
Well,
we'll see what the third one has in store.
Well, I know you're going to be busy writing a third book and everything, but the Nerds from Work, we are just hanging out, and we could use a new dungeon master maybe next year. So
yeah, like I said, down the road, I'm hoping to get better at this writing thing and take less time doing it and produce more. So
Well, yeah, we definitely have to keep in touch, man, because this is awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Dungeons and Dragons band.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think it lends itself. That's when I play Dungeons and Dragons next. I want to use this setting because it's so easy to be like, okay, you guys are in a band, you're in a tavern. Comes your manager. He's got a gig for you. You get to go into this goblin's lair. Bam, you get paid for it. Now you're gonna fuck people. Like, yeah.
And really, that would be
like it lends itself pretty well to that.
Yeah, because you kind of skip all the. Let's maybe we could go to the barber and ask him what he.
100%.
The manager fucking does.
You have your gig, or you could set it in a later era where they're going from arena to arena and fighting and stuff like that, and then something goes wrong and you're off into the wild. So lots of cool scenarios.
Yeah, you could be our Danny DeVito manager.
Perfect.
Hell yeah. Well, man, this has been great, man. I am a huge fan of your work. Like I said, I've had the first one for a long time now. Actually, I don't think I pre-ordered it. I think I bought it as soon as it came out. But I've already pre-ordered the second book. I will be pre-ordering the third as soon as that one goes up. And, man, for me, it's been an honor getting to speak to you. So, Tank?
Yeah, man. No, I had Jason had mentioned the book before. I had kind of forgotten about it. And so when we heard you were coming on, I read the synopsis for the book again. I was like, no, I need to read this book, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm next in line for I have read everything about the book and not read the book yet.
That's all right.
It's like a chronological order, but yeah, especially after talking with you and reading everything about the book and the full series and hearing everything about it. Yeah, I'm super excited about getting it. And don't be a stranger, dude. If you just want to come drink on the show and talk about other things, feel free.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Naru, we're signing off. Do you have anything for Nick?
I have nothing for you. Great talking to you. I'm looking forward to listening to. I typically do audiobooks. That's me. So I'm going to be listening to the book on my drive to commute tomorrow. And
I really appreciate that. It's got a pretty good one.
Quick question for you though. Does the audiobook come out the same time as the actual book? I have no idea.
Yeah, it usually does. It comes out usually on the day that the UK one comes out, so 2 days later.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got a pretty great guy for the first one. He does a lot of cool voices and yeah.
Yeah, those guys are amazing. Like audiobooks, that's a whole different skill set.
Yeah, I actually insisted on a girl for the second one just because when guys do girl voices in audiobooks, it kind of pisses me off a lot of the time. They do kind of weird. It's just awful. It sounds horrible. And because the main narrator's a girl and the main band member's a girl, I'm like, I can't deal with this the whole time. So I got to hear a couple different people. Yeah. So I got to hear a couple people and pick one that I think she's going to be great.
Yeah, I think you retweeted her or something recently. So yeah, I thought I thought that was the reason why they got a girl, because the voice of the second book was going to be a girl.
Exactly. But the first one is just an old guy.
The first audiobook was really good though. Nick.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's great. Tell them where to find your book, where to buy it, where to find you. How to check out.
All right, Kings of the Wyld is available in hopefully your local bookstore or your library. You can get it online on Amazon. You can listen to the audiobook, which is fantastic. And then, Bloody Rose is out on the 28th of August or the 30th in the UK. So yeah, I hope you like it. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm on there. So any news and announcements, I usually put it on there.
Awesome. Naru, tell them where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me on all social media at TheNerdsFromWork.
Spell it.
TheNerdsFromWork nerd.
Yeah, you say that like people know how to spell.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to forever spell your handle for us.
All right, Brandon, tell them where to find you, brother.
You can find me on the cover of Time Magazine at BMiller425.
That was you?
Yeah.
That was you on the cover?
It was just all black and white with a double exposure, just kind of my face.
Gotcha.
It's a good one.
Gotcha. Tank, tell them where to find you, buddy.
Yep, you guys can find me all over the internet at The Caped Critic. Thank you guys. And thanks, Nick, for coming on. We appreciate it.
Oh, I really appreciate it, too.
yet, you guys can find me on Instagram now and Twitter at Houdini0333. Doing Instagram TV. All of us are going to be on there talking crap to each other probably. Keep up with us. Keep up with the show. You can follow the show at The Nerds From Work on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Facebook. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Nerds From Work. Hey, and from all of us, they're at the workplace and I'm on vacation, bitches. Deuces.
So